Hey, it's Dr. Ganatra, and in this one, I'm gonna go over the 5 things to consider if you're building a practice. Not if you're buying one, but if you're actually building a practice from scratch. How do you think through it? What do you prioritize? How do you know if this next step is the right step? So these 5 areas are gonna give you some clarity and some confidence on if you are doing the right thing and how do you evaluate that spot. So let's just get right into it. I'm gonna pull open the whiteboard here. The 5 things to consider if you're building a practice from scratch. Now, I know some of these may also be relevant if you're buying an existing office, but for this one, we're gonna focus on if you're building one, right? A scratch office. You're literally getting contractors, you're signing a brand new lease if you're building an office when there was no office there before. Okay, the first one is there room for growth? Most doctors miss this, room for growth. So let's just put that down, room for growth. Here's what I mean by this. You have to build for who you want to be 10 years from now, 5 years from now, tomorrow, not who you are today. And most dentists think, oh, you know what, this is my first practice. I'm literally just gonna build a practice that, a good starter office. And that's not the way to go, because a starter office is not where you're gonna be 10 years from now. You're gonna grow into a totally different clinician. And if you don't have enough space in that place, and if you're building a 2-chair office or a 3-chair practice, you're gonna run out of room for growth. You wanna be able to have associates, you wanna have hygienists, you wanna have multi-specialties, you wanna have these individuals in your practice, because that builds a business. And you have to be thinking, is there room for growth? Do I have 5 or 7 chairs? I would recommend going at least 5 chairs. 5 is better than 3. That's $1 million practice. It's hard to take a 2 or 3 chair office to $1 million. But it's easier if you have 5 or 7 chairs to hire the right people, to make sure that you have a team now that's helping you with the work, whether it's specialties, maybe it's a hygienist, maybe it's multiple team members. There's room for growth. You gotta make sure you consider that. That's the first part. The second part is this, just kind of going with that first part. What's the rent gonna be like in 10 years? So let's write that down. Rent in 10 years. Why do I say this? Because so many people think, oh, my rent's okay right now, but in 10 years, they don't even think about what the rent is. And in 10 years, you may want to sell the business. Now, you may be thinking, gosh, Dr. Ganatra, I don't want to sell my office ever. Yeah, that's great. But anytime you build a business, you also can't just be thinking of the starting line. You can't be thinking of the start point. You also have to think of the finish. The finish may be a sale. It may be, how can I make this enticing and lucrative for a buyer? Any great business, especially a physical entity with a location, has to be thinking of, is this going to be lucrative for a buyer to get in and buy? And one of the things that holds buyers or dentists back from purchasing a practice is rent. If that rent is going to be $15,000 or $20,000 in 10 years, and you're only doing $500,000 in that office, not good. So figure out what your start point is with the rent. See if it increases 3%, 3.5% every year. See if the triple net or the common area maintenance charges, the CAM charges, go up every year. And that's all normal. It's all within the scope of real estate practices. But you got to make sure, where are you going to land in 10 years? And the landlord can give you an amortization schedule showing where you will be in 10 years. And if that rent is within reason for, so many different factors of, we don't know what it's going to look like in 10 years, but if it's within reason, which means that your current numbers are within the local community, within that community, if those are within reason, and you know that you're not so out of reasonable numbers right now, and then in 10 years, you'll probably be within the reason of that community and saying, hey, these are reasonable for that location. Perfect. My rent's going to be $10,000, but I'm anticipating to do $1.5 or $2 million in that office a year because I have room to grow. So make sure you look at your rent number in 10 years. Now, next, the third thing, and this is a big deal, especially when we talk about how to actually think through location. Well, two areas with location. Is it a community or is it a commuter location? A community versus commuter. So let me put that down. We'll write that down as commuter versus community, okay? Now, what's the difference? A commuter location basically means that people go into that space, they work there, and they go home. They don't live there, they actually just stay there for work, and they go home. They drive in, and they go home. There aren't really that many community events. There's not that many local gatherings. There's not that many local community festivals or gatherings or things that people congregate for, right? A commuter city is they go in, they come out. Now, I know people work remotely way more now than ever before, right? So this is even more important because if you're working remotely, you're barely going into work over there. So you want to build a practice where there is a community, where there is a church, multiple churches, multiple schools, multiple areas and reasons for people to gather. There's like school sporting events, there's sports leagues, there's coffee shops, there's different things for different families to do on the weekends. There's a reason for people to live there, not just work there. Because if you want to get busy in your practice and you want the right marketing and you're doing the right marketing, you want to make sure that you get known in this community as the doctor or the dentist there. Now, I'll tell you this, it's hard to get known in a community when there isn't really a community because it's just a commuter city, right? So you want to build in a community. That's like number one rule. Don't get it even more twisted than that. Don't get it more complicated. Build in a community. Now, I'll tell you this, number 4, make sure, if you can do it, you have signage on the building. Now, let's put that down in here. Signage. What do I mean by signage on the building? Essentially, there's 2 types of signage. Sometimes we have a monument sign where people enter that location or enter the building or the parking lot, and they just have the different names of the different businesses on it. Versus having a big sign on the building. I've had practices with both monument signs and big signs. And I can tell you this, from a branding perspective in the local community, that building sign is the way to go. You may not always get that. That may not always be an option. But if you can do it, and if your landlord can approve it, and if your city can approve it, I would highly recommend you get a sign on the building. Now, I can tell you this. I'm going to tell you right now, signage in community matters less than ever before. Now, I know that just contradicts what I just said, but this and this matters less than ever before because we have this. We have the phones. We have the internet from where we should be posting content on, where we should be getting known on, right? So I can tell you, as a business owner and as a dentist who's building, that brings me to number 5. You should be asking yourself, what is your plan? What is your plan to get known? What is your plan to get known? And I can tell you that if you don't have a plan to get known, then someone else is going to be knowing somebody else, right? If you don't have a plan to get known, someone else is going to be knowing somebody else. So you got to create a plan that says, hey, oh my God, I am literally doing whatever I can to get known here. And that means you are, as you're building the practice, and here's the greatest thing you can do. You're documenting the entire process. So you're going through and taking a video of the space, you're taking pictures, and you're posting and sharing that on social platforms, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook, on YouTube. You're posting it native to the platform, what is normal to the context of that platform. You are posting that story, that transformation of where you're starting and where you're going and where you ended up. Because people support what they create. So you want to get them, the local community, your audience, the potential patients, you want to get them rallying up behind you saying, oh my God, Dr. Ganatra's building an office. This is so cool. Oh, she's going through the process of building a business. She's sharing it with us. Oh, how cool is that? They get to know you, and they get to know you because you're sharing the process with them. And you can easily do that online now. So now, the community is those individuals that have watched you build. And then you build up to this big event, which is the grand opening. You're like, oh, we're building this community online. Oh, there's going to be a grand opening. That's how you're also getting known. So, oh, this is perfect. So now the grand opening's coming. And then you have an offer for that grand opening. Maybe you're doing free teeth whitening. Maybe you're giving away whitening kits to the local city. Maybe you're linked up with the local chamber and you're doing an event with them. But you're constantly posting about this on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, on Facebook, on the social platforms. It doesn't matter what platform is relevant now. You're posting on it and you're sharing your journey. You see, it doesn't matter what tool there is. And these are all just tools. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, they're all just tools. The psychology still remains. You have to be posting consistently on the process so people can see, oh, this is what's happening behind the scenes. And they see you as a human first before their dentist. Rather than you having to think that, oh my God, they got to see me as their dentist, start thinking, gosh, what if they just see me as a person building a business and the reason why I want to build this practice, the story behind why this practice is meaningful for me and how I want to contribute to the local community and what I want to do with dental care and how this is such an important pillar in my life to help treat other people with their dental work, right? So you got to get known and you got to share the process, especially if you're building an office, you got to share that process. And you have to be thinking, what is my way of getting known? And the other thing I would recommend is pick one or two services. And I know you're going to do everything. You do family dentistry or general dentistry, but pick one or two services. Maybe it's implants, maybe it's veneers, where you really just want to dig in and you have a case library for those services and you're exemplifying, you're showing those cases before people even come in. So that way you're scheduling people in before you open because they've gotten used to your work. They've gotten used to seeing you online. And then they're going to ask, hey, when's the grand opening? Oh my God, it's here. We're scheduling people in for that first month. And all those people that come in that first month, here's what we're doing, right? So you got to be thinking of these things as you're building the practice. These are 5 simple, effective, and easy ways and things to consider before building your practice. Do you have the room for growth? What's the rent in 10 years? Is this a commuter city versus a community? What's the signage like? And how will I get known? All of those things make such a big difference. I hope this one helped you. Let me know what you thought in the comments. As always, I love making these for you, and live inspired.